let's stop.
Okay. How did you meet Dr. An Byung?
Yeah, he was very close to EMS in general, and so I was introduced to him right shortly after I came. He invited us for dinner at his house, and we met fairly regularly during all the years I stayed in Korea, and he was always very, very a good teacher on the one hand, and very much interested, as you know. After my language studies, I worked in one of the Minjung churches in the urban poor area, and he was very much interested in how I, as a foreigner, experience the reality of the Minjung on the grassroots level, and somehow he always was a little bit envious because he was a professor and I was still young, so I could make this experience to live very close to the Minjung. He gave me a Korean name. After I arrived, we have the tradition, not only the German but the American missionaries as well, that we take a Korean name. And usually it's a little bit related to our original name. My second name is Treasure, so he was looking what sound could there be. So he has chosen Do-Ryo-Su, Treasure Do-Ryo-Su. And then he has given me Chinese characters. And Do is Do-Cha for way, Yo is same, and Su is water. So way like water. And it sounds a little bit Taoist to some Koreans or to some Chinese people too. When I'm in China or in Japan, they Do-Ryo-Su, they read the Chinese characters. But it has a very deep meaning, again theologically a deep meaning. Water always is flowing downwards. Love of God is coming down, Christ becoming human. So the God's movement is from high above to the lower things, and so we as we know, and as Minjung theology is teaching, we don't find God above there, but we find Him below there, and so I'm very happy about my name.
Did you try to give him a German name?
No, never.
I didn't think so. I just thought I'd ask.
He's very famous in Germany. His many of his articles and so have been translated, and I still feel that his book Jesus from Galilee, that it is that his discoveries, even for scholars in the West, are something they should carefully read.
So you recommend it?
Sorry?
You recommend it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I had the chance during my time in Korea to write a lot of articles, mostly in German, but some in English as well, about my understanding of Minjung theology, and then of course about the praxis of the Minjung churches.
Were you in Korea at the time when he was working on the book? Do you know?
Yes. He was. The Korean version of his book, Jesus of Galilee, was published during the time I was here, and he was at that time for some months in the US giving lectures, and I have still with me the copies of his English lectures, and this was the basis for the book Jesus of Galilee, which has been much later, after his death in the 2000s, been published by Christian Conference of Asia.
Okay, I see. What do you remember about Dr. An Byung-Moon's wife?
Yes, it was. That again, of course, it was a very funny story. When I know she has been a women activist. She has been leader of the YWCA movement before they married, and she's been involved in women work all the time. And An was very proud of his wife. Later she was. I remember when I came to Korea, there were among 300 members of parliament just 3 women, and the next bunch, and Yoo Jong was one of the women. So women you've seen, and then in the next year in 92 or 3, so there were 6 women elected to become member of parliament, and one of these women was Park Young-suk, the wife of An Byung-moo. And then when Kim Dae-jung stepped down as chairperson of the that time Democratic Party, she became for a while the chairperson as a woman, and was one of the first Korean women really in a position of high influence. And at that time, An Byung-moo was used to tell, even if when his books were presented, so he took center stage, but he said, oh, you see, in those days, I was introduced, and my wife was introduced as being my wife. Now, wherever we appear in public, she is introduced, and then people refer to me as, and this is the husband of Mrs. Park Young-suk, but he was very proud about it.
Of course. We should all be so lucky.
Yeah. And she was later, she was the activist in the ecological movement, Mrs. Park Young-suk. That's I remember, but it's quite a long time. I met An Byung-moo until he died regularly, but I didn't meet her so much. Dorothea, to whom we referred earlier, she kept in contact, and I think she died now. Park Young-suk 돌아가셨어요?
안 돌아가셨습니다.
근데 암에 걸렸어요. 심각하게. She's suffering from cancer now.
Okay. So just to clarify, you said that Park Young-suk was involved in the ecological movement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
Let's see. In 1989, you started the mission for the poor in Haegyeong, the northeast part of Seoul. What motivated you to engage in the mission?
Not I started.
We had that wrong.
No, it's okay, but it's very important.
Okay.
It's good that you ask this way, because it's a good opportunity to clarify. I never took central stage as a ecumenical co-worker. I always have been a co-worker, and so the mission, the Yongon Church in Haegyeong there was already a Korean who was very, very active and very much committed and really living in that area together with his wife and his children, when I came, earning 250,000 won, Ishiboman won, in 1 month, living in a panchachon, in a village made of cart, block, wood, Like today you see slums like this in Philippines. You cannot imagine that there have been slums of this kind in Korea. But he and his wife and his children were living there. Toilet outside, no running water. They had to go to the water tap. If they wanted to wash laundry, they had to wash it at night, because then they could bring a hose from the water tap to their house to wash. They lived under very hard conditions, and I joined him, and so I didn't start any work. And of course work was reinforced by my presence, and public interest came and increased, but I learned a lot from Reverend Oyang Shik, who was working there. And one of the first things he said, God's heart is beating for the poor. And that was something very strong. And another word he used to say, which is very typical for the Korean movement, is we are living from eating our dreams. 우리가 굶 먹고 사는 사람들입니다. You know, that's been an old impression for activists who didn't earn money, who really just barely could make their living, but they were not working. They wanted to express, we are not working to earn money, but we are working because we have a dream and we want to realize this dream. 굶 먹고 사는 사람들. You can remember this.
What kind of work were you doing?
Yeah, I mean, there was a small congregation in that urban poor area, young church, and at the same time there was a very strong social work. There was Takaso, means creche, kindergarten. There was medical care every Saturday, doctors came. There was kongbubang, helping children with their homework. And then later we got some money, we could start a library. And then again we received some money. Some of the poor people living there were old people who were who had either had no siblings or were thrown out by their own siblings. So they had nobody taking care of them. So we had what we call Pyonganan Chip House of Peace, where during daytime old people could meet, and then they received a meal, a lunch there, and they could take rest. And again I learned a very beautiful expression from these old people. Once a visitor came and asked the old people how they feel, and then they said, Yoki Mao Noko Isilsuita. That means literally, this is a place where we can put down our hearts. It means we can be here at peace. But it's a very, very, very strong Korean expression. Korean language is beautiful. These were activity, social work. What I started, I didn't think, because I was a social worker. I thought, I will be heavily involved in the social work. But what I started in that urban poor area was Kuyagib, house church worship meetings, where we meet at the houses of the people once a week. And it was very, very beautiful to listen to the poor people, how they read and understand the Bible. I learned a lot from them, and this was there we forged a very strong relationship to each other, really crying and loving with each other.
Do you have any examples of something you might have learned?
Oh, I've many. I've many examples of how different biblical verses on. Maybe I tell one which not from the women but from one of the children, which this village I was working was called Dwejimal. So it was a pig village, and the meaning was that until '86, when Asian Games took place in Seoul, people were allowed to raise cattle within the vicinity of Seoul. Then again, they had to leave the vicinity of Seoul, and the first people who moved in that urban poor area literally moved into the stables where pigs or cattle was living, and they renovated and then they lived there. So that was why it was called Dwejimal, pig village. And then we had Christmas, and of course Christ too is born in a stable. That's what tradition is saying, and so it was so close. It was like Christ is born in this urban poor area, and once I asked one of the children what Christmas means to him, and then this child she said, Christ too we are poor, and Christ too was poor when he was born, so I know he is very close to us. And I think this experience we had, there is not only historical gap which prevents us from understanding the social relevance of the gospel, but there is a social gap too. Most people reading Bible in a very comfortable environment.
Very wise children. At the time when you were in the Dwejimal, how long did you socialize with Reverend Oyongshi?
After I came in '87, I started to work there in '89, and I left Korea in May '95. So all the years we worked together, and till today we are friends. We are Tongkap. We have same age, and so every time I visit Korea, we meet each other, and we are very close to each other.
Can you describe the Minjung theology and Minjung churches?
Many people say, because now Korea has developed, Minjung theology is not anymore relevant. I admit the circumstances of the emergence of Minjung theology in the 70s was dictatorship, a strong gap between rich and poor people, was censorship, was alienation of intellectuals who wanted to work for the country. So in that context, Minjung theology came into existence. And some people say now situation is different, so Minjung theology is not anymore relevant. But in so far as Minjung theology is thinking together the suffering of God and the suffering of people, it remains relevant. It remains relevant in so far that we always should focus and should look why and for what reason people are suffering, and how suffering can be changed into, as I told you, Han has been transformed in life-giving energy, and suffering too can be overcome. The reasons for suffering can be changed. Death can be changed into life, and insofar as we always have to take care that our faith is relevant to the people who suffer, Minjung theology remains relevant today as well. That's my belief. Latin American liberation theology is speaking about a preferential option for the poor. Min Chung theology is speaking about God's preferential option for the suffering, and there is a difference, a nuance, which I think is very important.
Can you explain that difference? Because
there are, for me, there are several kinds. Poor is defining people only in terms of economics, but suffering has a broader meaning. People are alienated. People maybe are suffering because they are different. People. It's more inclusive. The option for the suffering. It's more inclusive, I think. Broader.
Yeah, it sounds like you could include more sects of people in that kind of in that kind of categorization. Have you been able to take Minjung theology and apply it back in Germany in any way?
I mean, what happened after I came back from Korea was that we started in Germany. A movement started that in wintertime churches are converted into places where, because it's very cold, like in Korea, but churches who in Germany usually are empty during the week. So churches have been converted into guest houses. That means the benches have been stored outside, tables have been set up, and every day from 10 o'clock in the morning till 3, 4 o'clock in the evening, churches are open, offering a warm place for poor people and really welcoming them as they are welcomed in a guest house. And I started one of these churches, and we had every day around 200 otherwise marginalized people coming, economically poor people, old people who have little pension, families with many children, prostitutes, drug addicts, AIDS, people suffering from AIDS, alcohol addicts, and we were welcoming everybody without any discrimination, and for me it was striking. And even for policemen, we had 200 volunteers every day, 25, 30 volunteers. One of them was a policeman, and he came, and after the second day he came to me and he said, "Oh, I don't understand what's going on here. I know so many of these people when I'm walking around, and whenever I see them, usually they are fighting or shouting at each other, but now they are sitting here, and I don't hear any bad word. What happened? What's the secret of this place?" And that was one example. And of course, I'm very much influenced by Minjung theology, though that my way I'm preaching and doing theology is
that comes across. Yeah, that comes across clearly. How were you associated with the Korea Verband, the Korean Communication Research Center?
Yes, I already mentioned before that networking, if we want to bring about change for the process of transformation of society, networking is very important. One of the problems of social movements is if they start to promote their own organizational benefits over the whole what they want to achieve. So I was networking within Korea with groups, not only with churches but with other groups, and I was networking in Germany with other groups. In in Korea itself, while I was based in that urban poor area. It was for me important to come back again and again to these poor people, to celebrate with them, to be with them. But at the same time I had a lot of freedom to do other things, to accompany journalists, to accompany human rights activists coming from Germany, to accompany professors doing social research. And at the time not many people were there who were able to speak. Not many foreigners were there who were able to speak, and at that time there were less Koreans who were able to speak English. Now we have plenty of Koreans speaking very well English. That time you needed translation everywhere. So I was moving on all levels of society. I had contact. Of course, one of my most important contacts was National Council of Churches and their Human Rights Department. The present General Secretary of NCC, Kim Young-chu, he was at that time the director of the Department for Human Rights. So every week I dropped in asking, are there any news? Then I was related to Mingayap, that's the family members of people imprisoned. Then I had very close contacts to the teacher union. The founder of the teacher union, Isuho, he was a church member of our church also. During my time, at most time he was imprisoned. Then I had contacts to the free labor unions which came into existence. I had contacts to the urban industrial missions. That were my contacts within Korea, and my contacts in Germany, besides having many contacts to journalists. One of the very close associations was Korea Communication and Research Center, but Amnesty International as well. And with the Korea Communication and Research Center, I was their correspondent in Korea. They had a quarterly, what was called Korea Forum. And I used to write, and I have for your files, I have two of the articles which I have written. For example, Seoul, April 91. So it's about economic development and about the situation of workers and trade unions in South Korea. And it's not mentioned who has written it, because at that time still it was good to be careful and not to sign. So it's just written report of our correspondent, and this is giving quite detailed overview about the actual development at that time. And as you may be aware of, in 80 till 87, the focus of the movement, of the social movement, of the Undang in Korea was human rights and democratization. From 89 onwards, there was a shift, and trade unions started to ask for their rights. So the shift was from human rights and democracy towards social justice. That's something that's part of the history which is too little aware of. And this article might give interesting aspects of this.
You had mentioned, I have it in my notes here somewhere,
on page.
It was something about solidarity.
Yeah, maybe.
I really want to ask that question. Oh, so according to your article, you used the word solidarity to describe the relationship between EMS and Korea. In the last 15 years, what examples of solidarity have you encountered within within Korea, amongst Korean people and within the society? Sorry, I guess you've already answered that. I did want to ask one other thing. Solidarity is a word that's sort of synonymous with labor unions, and as you said, labor unions came in at that time. So your use of the word solidarity is it to make a connection between the struggles of labor unions and the Korean democratic movement? Are you saying they're the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, solidarity basically has to do with standing on the side of walking together with, supporting, giving support to. And for me, solidarity is something which very much is on eye level. It's not we are so strong and we help the poor one, but it's a basis of being in solidarity is respect. And solidarity has many forms. For me, it starts with taking serious suffering, really trying to understand what is it, what is the reason why people are suffering, what are their central life concerns, what do they want to achieve, what are they doing to achieve this, and then the question comes, in what way can we be helpful to achieve this? This all has to do with solidarity. Solidarity for me, again, starts with taking serious the suffering of others. It's related to prayer. It's important to pray because this gives you an inner understanding of the situation of others. And then the acts of solidarity can be very diverse. It can start with a signature campaign, with visits, solidarity visits, or in case of the labor unions, what we did around that time, I think, it was sometimes in the beginning of the 90s. There were many strikes in the automobile industries, Hyundai, Kia, General Motors. And what we did, we invited workers from people from UIM together with leaders of trade unions working in, at that time, DEO. DEO was related to General Motors. In Germany there is a company which is called Opel, which again is related to General Motors. So General Motors is a head company. They have a Korean and a German company. So we brought together activists working in DEO and trying to organize labor movement in DEO, and we brought them to Germany together with labor activists working in Opel factories. And this is a concrete example of organizing solidarity visits and bringing together people.
When you say bringing them together, you just help them communicate, or there was actual organization?
They were invited to come to Germany. A group of people from Korea came to Germany, and at the same time there was ongoing exchange between German the German churches movement for workers and the urban industrial mission in Korea.
Seems unprecedented now. that kind of activity. Getting back to your time at Korea Verband and your relationship with Professor Günther Freudenberg.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what happened when he tried to attend the reunification conference of the NCCK in Incheon?
Yeah. Maybe I have to introduce Professor Günther Freudenberg. He is a philanthropist from Germany, and already somehow in the 60s he was director of a center which was welcoming foreign students. So he was helping them to get to find their place in Germany, to do their studies, and he became a friend of the famous composer Yunisang. And Yunisang, when Yunisang was abducted by the Korean Secret Service from Germany in 1967, Günther Freudenberg was the person who really moved up to the German president. So the German churches and the German public were activated and were protesting this abduction, and so that was. And then Günther Freudenberg visited North Korea as well, sometimes in the 80s. And of course all this was not something the South Korean government was very happy about. He was part of the Korea Coordination Committee of the German churches, and in this capacity he was nominated to be part of the delegation to attend the first conference on reunification in 1988 in Songda Hotel in Incheon, which I of course attended to, and we were really shocked to see that he came to Korea, and at that time from Gimpo Airport he was returned with the next flight out of the country to Hong Kong, so he was not allowed to enter Korea. And of course German government protested against this, and but it took another 5 years until Kim Jong-un became president that he finally was allowed to come to Korea, and I was accompanying him at the time and was translating for him. And we visited then reunification minister Han Wang-sang, and we went to the Blue House to visit one of the secretaries of President Kim Jong-un, Mr. Oh, who was related to us from Seoul University, and we were trying to pave the way that Songdeol can come back to Korea, but it was too early at the time. It took another 10 years until Songdeol could come, then in 2003 only to be arrested.
Oh, goodness. Do you think, had Professor Freudenberg been able to enter in 1988, do you think that might have sped up the reunification movement? Obviously, reunification is still a work in progress. But
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Okay. What do you think?
But I think it would be good. I don't know whether you ever had somebody from the Korea Communication and Research Center invited for the event of the Korea Democracy Foundation. They did tremendous work, and it's still existing. And I think one of the representatives of the Korea Democracy Foundation should be invited by Korea Democracy Foundation. It's a very crucial part of the movement of the secular support for the Korean democracy movement in Germany. Germans and Koreans working together.
Okay. So that connection hasn't been made yet then?
I'm not sure. I mean, through somebody it should have been there, but I don't know if anybody of the Korea Communication Research Center has been invited.
Oh, I see. What do you think of the association with civil groups in Korea? You talked specifically about the teachers' union earlier, but with other civil groups, what do you think about the association? Are there any difficulties working with these groups that have different priorities, or?
You always have to overcome your own shadow in a way to work together with others. But it's important. It's important to define a common cause, and then to work for the implementation of this cause, and you don't have to forge an alliance which is lasting now and forever, but you can take up certain issues and work together to solve this issue. I think that this way of issue-based association of people who can work together is very, very important to achieve things. Everywhere we are sometimes a little bit too narrow-minded and too much concerned with our own organizational issues and not open enough to see whom we can get involved.
Sounds like a problem that still persists.
Yeah. I think it's same in Germany and in Korea.
Since 2001, I think you talked about this a little bit, but you served as both the East Asia and India Liaison Secretary of EMS. Can you tell us what EMS stands for, and how would you describe the activities of EMS?
Maybe one activity I want to finish my time in Korea, I want to talk about first. One important part of my work has been that I tried to build a bridge to the German embassy. I had a lot of informations, and we were talking about Kim Kun-tae. I met Kim Kun-tae while he still was hunted for, Subechun. I met him for the first time, and I was associated to the artist Hong Song-dam and so many people. So I tried to be a bridge to the German embassy to get them involved. And for example, the process against Hong Song-dam, I observed all the time when he was accused that he got some spy money in Germany and all this rubbish, which was not true at all. We had an exhibition of his woodblock prints, and these were sold, and from selling these woodblock prints he got money, and this had nothing to do with spy money and all this. I think this was a good way of giving alert to the public. And this is a bridge to what we are doing in EMS. One of the last, we do regularly conferences and seminars on Korean issues. And one of the last conferences, beginning of last year, was was a conference where we invited Hong Song-dang to come to Germany. And the issue and the theme of that conference was threats to the present, threats to democracy about the present situation on the Korean Peninsula, and we were dealing with allegations against the last presidential elections and the involvement of the KCIA. We were dealing with history book issue. We were dealing with instances of censorship, and we were dealing with worker situation, all these irregular workers. These were the issues we were dealing with, and so from a German, within the German context, what we were trying during the last 15 years to uphold a certain level of interest in the Korean question. And especially, of course, we were focusing on the reunification question. And I think in between the perspective was different, but in end of 1980s, the slogan was, there won't be any real democratization in South Korea without solving the problem of reunification. Because so many national security law, mistrust within South Korean society, censorship, authoritarianism, a culture of militarism, all this is so closely related to the unsolved question of the relationship between North and South Korea, that I think it's true. To achieve real democratization, peace, at least peaceful coexistence is a precondition. And so this is a theoretical frame, and then the special German situation is that I always tell my German friends, we have been living in a divided country, and to us unification has been given nearly as a gift. So we have a historical obligation to not to forget the suffering of the still divided Korean people. And so EMS is known in Germany as an advocate for peace and peaceful coexistence on the Korean Peninsula, and I think EMS has been kind of a driving force in order that not only EMS but German church structures, EKD, that is the Council of Churches in Germany, and other relevant bodies like Bread for the World, that all these organizations continue to show their interest in the Korean question and actively support efforts to bring about change. For example, peace treaty campaign. We had several resolutions in our International Mission Council calling for support for the efforts of the Korean churches to forge a peace treaty.
You mentioned acting as a bridge to the German embassy?
Yeah.
Right? What were the roadblocks that you were having to deal with?
I mean, it was not easy. It was not easy to build trust, because in the beginning, because the movement, which is not organized in parties, and so it's always a little bit suspect. So you have to continue to convince people that everywhere you have to convince people about the importance of human rights. But after a while, the there were, I think, two factors. They were happy, they were happy that there is somebody who speaks Korean. That was one factor. The second thing was they were happy that there is one person who has access to people they don't have access. They could send, they were happy when I met with people like Kim Kuntae, who were searched for and untergetaucht. I don't know how you say it. We in German we say they were diving. They were
underground.
Yeah, they gone underground. Yeah, I could meet those people, but the German embassy official was not able to meet them. This would have been a diplomatic cause. So they were happy that I had access to parts of society they don't have, and they didn't follow me with every assessment I had, but I know from many reactions that in a way I could build trust, and they at least took serious what I was sharing with them.
I see. Okay. Let's see. According. So you were talking about Germany being divided and unification as being a gift. Korea is still divided. What do you think? You've talked a lot about what you think it'll take, but I guess what lessons can be taken from German reunification that maybe can be applied to Korean?
I think it's not so easy because situation is so different. So we cannot compare, and it might be even dangerous to compare. But one thing, one lesson we can take for sure. I met for the first time North Koreans in Germany in 1989 in June in Berlin. They were representatives of the Korean Christian Federation in North Korea, and in June '89, if somebody had told us that in the same year Berlin Wall will be opened, we would have said you are crazy. Never. Don't have hotkum kuchimasu. I don't have dreams which never will be fulfilled. But 6 months later, Berlin Wall was opened. And the lesson we can learn from this is we don't know when it will happen, and and I think it might be as unexpected in the Korean case as it has been unexpected in the German case. So it's good to have a certain level of readiness, and that's one lesson. And the second lesson, we have to prepare reunification before reunification is taking place, and that means we have to change thinking. Until now, the Korean discourse about reunification is very much centered on one race, one blood, one ancestor, a Tongil Minjak. That's what they used to say. But we have to realize that people in North Korea and people in South Korea are different, and we have to realize that South Koreans, there is a huge diversity now within South Korean society, and I think reunification will only be realistic under the assumption to accept diversity. Otherwise, the encounter between North and South Koreans will again end up in bloodshed. And I think there has to be a fundamental change in perception and thinking. And otherwise, I don't know whether we can talk too much about German lessons for. Maybe a third thing, I don't think, often people in South Korea says, oh look how expensive German reunification is, that we never can do. I think situation on the Korean Peninsula is so different. You have China as a strong economy. I don't think this is an argument, and if you look now at the European situation, Germany is economically is the strongest country within the European Union. So we even can say that by reunification we even became stronger economically. Also, it was very important. There may be these three aspects we can look at.
It's interesting what you said about even after reunification, Koreans will have to be prepared that both North and South will be different. The people will be different. Can you maybe shed some light on that? Because I think that might be difficult for some people to understand. Because
we had this in Germany. We had the differences between people brought up in East Germany and brought up in West Germany, and for the first 10-15 years there was mutual mistrust, because the history and the bringing up of people within a socialist setting and within a Western setting is different. But in Germany, people in East Germany could watch Western TV. So they were, to a certain extent, they knew about the way West Germany is going on. North Korea and South Korea are totally separated. North Koreans know nearly nothing about South Korea. South Koreans don't know really about North Korea. They only see what the government wants them to see. And we don't know, South Koreans, we don't know much about the life of ordinary people, their hopes and aspirations. But North Koreans are brought up in expecting everything from the party and from the government, while South Koreans are very much, I have to forge my own destiny. And this is a fundamental difference, and we can see that not so many North Koreans who defected to South Korea have been really successful, and I feel very sorry about that. That if we want to have reunification, we should undertake every effort to associate, communicate, and learn from people who came from North Korea. But the interest in them, as they themselves tell me, I meet quite often, I meet North Korean refugees, and they say most South Koreans' interest in their story and their history is more superficial and not a lasting interest. And I feel very sorry to hear this.
Yeah. That's profound, actually, because it had a lot of big impacts soon. Speaking, since we're on the topic of reunification, what has EMS's role been in helping to achieve?
We are always part of the German churches. It's okay. We are activists. We are trying to keep to help that the German churches continue to be interested in this. But we work together with them, and we are part of the German churches movement. What we have done during the last nearly 30 years, we have entertained relationship to North Korea. In '86, when second visit of WCC delegation to North Korea took place, one German was part of that delegation. In '89, for the first time, the German churches invited South and North Koreans to come to Germany. We had a series of 7 invitations of North and South Koreans to Germany. Until 2001, it was more that the German churches were providing space for people from North and South Korea to meet each other. After 2001, when Kim Dae-jung became president, so many South-North exchanges took place, so it was not necessary anymore that North and South Koreans meet in Germany. They could meet in Kaesong, they could meet in Korea itself. That means from that time onwards, our role was changed and the setting of our cooperation was changed. We invited North and South Koreans for consultations, for international conferences where North and South Koreans were sitting together with representatives of the ecumenical movement, and where they were not only talking to each other, but where there was input and questions and encouragement from other groups as well. And I personally, I'm quite happy about that. In 2004, when the Ecumenical Forum for Peace, Reunification and Development Cooperation was founded, that they started in 2002 in Hong Kong, but the terms of reference and the final name of this Ecumenical Forum was formed at a conference we organized in Arnoldsheim in Germany. And I think this Ecumenical Forum, which now since World Convocation of the General Assembly of the World Council of Churches, has taken a new, started anew, and now WCC has started to be much more active regarding this Ecumenical Forum. And I'm very happy about this. In fact, next week, the reason why I'm not there till the end of the conference is that, but this should not be made public now, but these records will be made public later. So now I can tell it. On Thursday afternoon, I'm flying to Shenyang in China, and we are going to meet representatives of the Korean Christian Federation, and we will have a steering committee meeting of the Ecumenical Forum. That's why I'm not at the KTF conference till the end, because my priority is clear.
Of course, that's understandable. We were nearly out of time. Before we go, is there anything that you would like to add, or anything that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, we didn't touch on our visits in North Korea. I think that's something which should, in 2001, even before I became the East Asia Liaison Secretary, when we invited North Koreans to Frankfurt, the then German President, Johannes Rau, gave an audience to the North Korean and South Korean delegation. So we had half an hour of an encounter during the Kirchentag, and this of course gave a lot of value to the North Korean delegation. So after I took over in the end of 2001, the North Korean Korean Christian Federation, they sent a first invitation to the German churches to visit Korea in beginning in February 2002, and then in May 2002 the first delegation of German churches visited Korea. That was 2 years after Kim Dae-jung and Kim Jong-il met, so there was a lot of hope still. The German ambassador, who will be speaking at your conference after tomorrow, she was ambassador at that time, and she was full of hope that something is going to happen. This was still the case in 2005 during our second visit. Then our third visit to North Korea took place in 2009. That was 20 years after a Berlin Wall has collapsed, and it was meant as a sign of encouragement that we as German churches hope that the wall dividing North and South Korea will collapse too. So we went to Panmunjom from Pyongyang. We flew 3,500 kilometers to Seoul via Beijing, and went again to Panmunjom, and we took along the council of the churches in Germany. The impact, unfortunately, of that travel was not so high. And now I had to wait for 6 years until last year, October, that I could visit North Korea again. And that shows how under the changed leadership in the South, how much the situation has hardened, and I don't think that confrontation, as the last two presidents are entertaining, is really helpful to bring about change. And I'm very unhappy that some of the good things Kim Dae-jung has started and Omoyon has continued, like Kaesong and Kumgang Santuism, that all this has crumbled, and it's somehow like we have to restart a process of cooperation, of confidence building again from the scraps, and that's a very sad story in a way.
Wow.
So not only stories of hope, but sadness, but it's important to maybe again this sadness can be changed, as Han can be changed in life-giving energy. This sadness can be hopefully changed in life-giving energy.
Yeah, that's something to think about for sure. Well, this has been great. I want to thank you for your time and for your sharing your knowledge and information.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay here, and good luck in your upcoming endeavors as well.
Thank you. So we see tomorrow evening?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's nice.